Hello and welcome to Wilson Center Now, a production of the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars. I'm John Molesky. My guest today is Richmond Commodore. Richmond is a Southern Voices for Network scholar with the Wilson Center's Africa program and a policy analyst with the Africa Center for Economic Transformation in Ghana. His Wilson Center project is called Beyond Remittances, Engaging the Diaspora to Meet Africa's Development Financing Needs. Richmond, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I want to ask you first about the terminology. Remittances is a really an economics term in the context that we're talking about it. What are remittances?
So remittances are essentially funds that are sent from one country to another country. In the case of Africa, sent usually to support families for personal consumption, meet the personal consumption needs of families. In many cases to invest in real estate and all that. But remittances have been an increasing part of migration and development issues in Africa now. As of 1990, when it was about 2.4 billion personal remittances to Africa, by 2010 has actually increased to about 31 billion US dollars, and that's a big deal. By 2018, it had actually increased to about 48 billion.
And in the puzzle of financing and of development investing, what is remittances? Are they the biggest piece of the pie? Where do they fit in?
They are not. In the case of sub-Saharan Africa, they are not the biggest piece of the pie because remittances are private. Most of the cases in sub-Saharan Africa, they are sent to families, and reports show that 75% of it goes into direct consumption because those are the direct needs of families in sub-Saharan Africa. And when it comes, just the 15% that remains actually goes into, say, real estate investment and all that. But there are a lot of researchers that are also saying that a chunk of the remittances goes into education and finance the education of the youth.
Along that education, give us a sense of what are the areas in need of investment.
The investment needs for education is massive in Africa, especially because of the youth bulge coming up. Governments have to shift budgets every now and then to make sure they meet the educational needs of the up and coming generation. As you know, Africa has the largest youth bulge in the whole world. So when you come to countries like Ghana, a lot is being done to finance education, make sure people get affordable quality education so that they can prepare themselves and be able to maximize opportunities in their economies.
Is there a solid estimate of what the dollar amount is needed in the coming years?
There is an estimate for infrastructure, but not really for education.
Overall needs, yeah.
For infrastructure, Africa will probably need about 130 billion US dollars to be able to meet its financial needs a year.
And what's being done to achieve that level of investment? What are the strategies?
So countries are actually finding very innovative ways of doing that because remittances usually come from migrants who are living outside the continent. So beyond remittances, countries are finding very interesting, innovative ways to get the diaspora or the migrant population, African population, who are living in the host countries to remit more back at home. But this time around, channel it towards development issues. So countries are now, one of the widely touted ways that countries can leverage remittance, migration for development is through diaspora bonds, and a few countries have tried that.
What is it called again? I'm sorry.
Diaspora bonds. Mm-hmm. So diaspora bonds are essentially
sell the
bonds that are issued,
yeah, issued,
but then the target is the immigrants or emigrants of a particular country outside. So you would have a government issuing such bonds to, like Nigeria issuing such bonds to its Nigerian diaspora outside. So Nigerian diaspora buy into those bonds, and then the proceeds of those bonds goes into specific development projects in the countries. But out of 4 African countries that have floated these bonds, only Nigeria has been the successful country amongst these countries. But there's a huge potential for floating diaspora bonds in Africa, nonetheless.
When you talk about the potential, are you in terms of diaspora engagement overall, do you see that it's largely untapped, that there's still great growth potential?
It's actually largely untapped because the diaspora has been a bit hesitant in actually supporting needs of the country, actually, especially through.
Why have they been
I
hesitant?
mean, largely because of governance issues, corruption issues, the
Want to make
fact
sure
that
they're
they are
not throwing
scared
their money away.
that monies that are given might not be used for the intended purpose. But I must say that this is limited to just government-led diaspora development financing efforts. But the diaspora is increasingly finding very interesting ways to support various initiatives in countries. Crowdfunding has been one of the major ways they're doing that, and you realize the likes of Kickstarter, Indigo, GoFundMe accounts, funding specific
So even on that grassroots
courses,
level,
courses in the countries, and that's on the back of the increased globalization, internet penetration in Africa, and that's some of the things that diaspora is taking advantage of.
beyond investment or just pure cash, are there other resources that the diaspora can bring to bear?
Sure. The diaspora can provide a lot. When you look at the case of India and Israel, who have leveraged a lot from their diaspora, beyond just providing funds, they've been able to provide their skills to help in development in the country. The whole medical tourism industry in India is actually ascribed to the immigrant population that are returned migrants who are really medical experts, and they led that their knowledge is key. Their networks are enough to leverage enough investments into their country. They are also really key to actually building peace initiatives in countries. In the case of Somalia, their support has been crucial in maintaining peace in the likes of Puntland and Somaliland, which is a big deal. But that notwithstanding, countries are a bit more cautious about how the diaspora supports initiatives, especially in conflict-prone countries.
So what will be the final outcome of your work here, Richmond? Will there be a series of recommendations, a report that you'll prepare?
Yeah, so as part of my work here, I'm supposed to come out with a research paper on this theme, and then also come up with a policy brief that would essentially profess some solutions to the problems. Then I would also have an external presentation and present my findings to a mix of audience in Washington, D.C. area. Beyond that, I hope that when I return back to my country, I'll be able to engage with various experts and policymakers on how to maximize and leverage diaspora for development.
I know we're speaking with you, that is, while this is a work in progress, but are there any specific recommendations that you're working on that you haven't had a chance to speak about yet today?
So my first recommendation that came into mind, I mean, when I was working on this, was the need for African governments to build their governance structures, curb corruption, make sure they are transparent in their initiatives. That's one of the first things that they need to do to actually get the diaspora to increasingly support the development process, because these are some of these things that actually pushed the diaspora away from these countries in the first place. Secondly, because you need their funds, you need their support to develop the country. It's imperative that you provide them in the interest of social contract. You provide them efficient, better quality public services where these diasporans have made, so that they are not frustrated by the kind of public service you provide them at the consulates. So when they struggle with these consulates, they tend to have a warped opinion or views on the country's ability to actually deliver in its public administration process, and that creates a lot of problem in engaging them. Also, it's important that countries get to know their diaspora. Many countries don't have diaspora profiles. You need to know where they are located. You need to know their size. You need to know their financial status. You need to know the skills they possess and how you can leverage and tap that for your development.
How do you gather that data?
Countries usually, I mean, Nigeria has been able to do that, and I think that's one of the things that helped it in floating its bond. Having a very solid diaspora organization actually helps. So if you have these diaspora organizations in various countries and you have very good ties with the diaspora organizations, you can easily build the trust with the diaspora, and they'll be more than willing to provide this information, which you can use as a government to actually engage them. The diaspora are actually more than willing to support countries. Governments have to actually just do more to do that.
Yeah, in the age of big data, I would think that there'll be more and more technological solutions to figuring out, where these people are and how they can be of use.
Yeah, sure. There are a lot of opportunities for leveraging big data for that. But the initiatives have to be taken by governments themselves. There are some diaspora associations that are setting themselves and trying to organize themselves and put all this together, but the onus falls on the government.
So many things come down to good governance
Yeah.
in the end, don't they? Well, let me ask you, like I like to ask all of your colleagues who come through the Southern Voices Network program, has it been useful to you professionally, and about your time in DC? Has that informed your research?
Yeah, it's been a great experience. First off, coming to the DC area, the amount of resources you have at your disposal as a researcher, the kind of people you speak to, the kind of events you attend, the in-depth conversation, and the way people are willing to hear what you have to say, and also have very interesting insights they want to share. I think I've really learned a lot from that process. So I've been able to build a lot of network. I've been able to add a lot of knowledge to what I'm doing now, and I think that'll go a long way in advancing my career and my impact as someone working in the development space.
Glad to hear it, Richmond. Thank you. You teach us as well. It works both ways. So
Yes,
thank you for
thanks
your
so
time
much.
here at the center.
Thanks so much for
Thanks for
having me.
today as well.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed this discussion with Richard about his work. And as I mentioned in previous discussions with our Southern Voices Network scholars, the series of programs we've offered to you in the last couple days and weeks. If you'd like more information, come to the Wilson Center website and check under the Africa program. Find out about Richmond's work and others. Hope you enjoyed this edition of Wilson Center Now, and that you'll join us again soon. Until then, for all of us at the Center, I'm John Molesky. Thanks for joining us.